It is Sunday, July 13th. Thank you for being with us. We are live in the center of Ketchum at the Courtyard, and now it's my pleasure to welcome Ted Waddell to the set. Hi, Ted.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. I want to talk to you about, I was going to say local artist Ted Waddell, and I think that's exactly true, but what is local? You've been in Detroit, I know. You've been in New York. You've been in the West. So where's local to you?
Well, I'm a Montana native, an endangered species. We have property in Montana, and I've had property there all my life.
Okay.
But I've been here permanently for, I think, 12 or 13 years now. First started coming here in the early 80s, and I have a wonderful wife named Lynn Campion, who's a writer and photographer. So this is really home to me. I feel a part of the community. You know, I know the guy at the meat counter at Atkinson. I know the people at the post office.
Yeah.
So and the community's been very generous to me. So this is
Good to hear. And do those various communities that led up to this one, do those influence your work? I mean, I can't see how they wouldn't.
Well, I was in New York as a young person during the heyday of the abstract expressionists, so that has influenced my work all of these years. And I taught at the University of Montana in Missoula for a number of years, and I did sculpture that related to the mountains more, and then I ran cattle in central Montana for 20-some years. It all influences you. For example, here in Sun Valley, you think the light is totally crisp and clear, and as soon as you think that, there's a haze or a sort of a bluish cast to it that it defies understanding, and so you get several things at once. So they've all influenced me, every place.
That's interesting to hear you talk about the light like that. I've interviewed many artists in the Hamptons, and they all talk about how beautiful the light is there. Can you sort of identify or remember qualities of light in various places? I mean, you're describing it here in a way that I haven't thought about it here.
Oh, yes. In Montana, for example, we're in southwestern Montana near Dillon. The light in the winter is really crisp and harsh. Which there's a gentleness to the light here that is different. And so each place has its own characteristic. In early June, for example, the ground warms up and there's more moisture in the air, so it changes the light.
And of course, light is how we see. Light is reflecting off things. That's how we view the entire world. But when you're working, do you place your canvas in a certain place because of the quality of the light to go for a certain effect, or is it happenstance? I mean, it must be on purpose.
It is on purpose. Everything that I paint the titles refer to the specific places where I saw whatever it was that inspired me. Most of my work is done inside in the studio, but I do paint outside. I have a palette, which is a wagon, like the ones at the garden center, and paint's in the bottom and the palette's on top. So I drag that around various places to paint.
And little do people know when they see that person that they're looking at one of the great artists we have. So that's a cool scene you just painted for us there. Talk to me about some of the images that I know Whitney has over there at the director's chair. This looks like a continuous series. I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Yes, it is. Various places that I've been inspire me to do pieces, and I've looked at some places like over the Monida Pass, or looking out my studio window here on Deer Creek Road, and there's a continuity to it. It's sort of like Monet and the water lilies. He looked at that, and it provided continuity so that he could experiment in terms of his paint and the light and all of those things. And I've been influenced by that. For example, one of the images is called Bayer's Herefords. And Bayer's is a ranch near Twin Bridges, Montana, that's been in business for 107 years. And then there's a number of the Beaverhead series, Beaverhead Angus, Dillon horses. All of those are specific things that I observed in that place. So you get geography and the work as well.
And let's talk about interpretation of those real scenes that you watch with your eyes and then you get them to canvas, because as I look at what you have here, there's a certain ethereal quality or almost dreamy quality, and yet they're real places. So what's happening between the two?
Well, for me, I think finally, after nearly 50 years of painting, I'm at the intersection of abstraction, realism, and canvas. And all of those things play on each other to result in a thing. There's a thing called Idaho Night. There's a couple of those paintings. There was a painter named Olaf Wighorst who was a 19th century, early 20th century. He was a contemporary of Charlie Russell, and he painted the night better than anybody I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So looking out my studio window here, I started trying to do that myself. And so again, you take the historical influences and then you take the things that you feel strongly about and try to do something about it.
And as you evolve as a person, do you think that your art follows you as an evolving person, or is it the other way, where your art evolves and the person follows that? I mean, I can't ask many people that. I can ask you because you've lived this life.
Well, I've been very lucky. When I was 17, I discovered that I wanted to be an artist. And I don't want to be alive and not make art. And it goes both ways. I feel very, very fortunate to be in a painting tradition, and my cultural antecedents. I mean, I have a piece in the Denver Museum that's alongside or near a Bierstadt. And just to be in that company is very humbling. So you try to learn. I think you learn and you grow like tree rings. And each time you learn something, that allows you to learn something more. And
it must be an amazing relationship that you have with what you do. And as a young man, you committed yourself to art. Do you think about people like Van Gogh or Vermeer or these wonderful historic figures, or how does that affect you?
Well, very strongly. I mean, one of my very, very favorite painters is John Singer Sargent, who was a fabulous portrait painter. Another one, 2 weeks ago, we were in Paris and went to see the Water Lily series of Monet. I mean,
timeless.
Oh, unbelievable. And then we went to, there was a museum called Skagen in the northernmost tip of Denmark, where a group of painters who were contemporaries of Monet went every summer to paint because the light was incredible. Absolutely fabulous. So I feel very much a part of the painting tradition.
How does an accomplished artist like yourself consume a museum such as the ones in Paris, the Louvre, the Musée d'Orsay? What's your strategy? Can you tell me what you do? Because I don't know what I do. It's too much for me.
Well, I think it is for me too. I mean, I've been looking at Monet for 40 years, and you always look for something different. I mean, for me looking at him this time, I was really struck by the fact that he anticipated abstraction and abstract expressionism by 50 years at least. And you wonder how he did it. The other thing for me, again, is this business of, there are so many variables when you paint, that what he did is tried to eliminate some of the variables so that he could experiment within those. I do the same thing. I mean, I've looked at the Monet de Pass area thousands and thousands of times, and each time it provides something new, but there's a continuity there because I'm looking at the same landscape.
Chuck Close says the same thing. He's been a guest on Plum, and he says he's now handicapped in compared to his early career. He's changed, but he said the limitations actually brought him a greater understanding of working with the tools that he used to work with.
Oh, he's fabulous. Have you seen his pieces in person? The newer pieces, when you get up close to them, are totally abstract. And the more abstract, the more real. I mean, he's a fabulous painter. He
is, and it's a wonderful thing to watch him work. Can you just take me to the New York Times that you had in in the 60s, the era of the abstract artist. Who was around? Is it de Kooning and Pollock, and who's there in that scene?
Well, the ones that Franz Klein, Pollock, David Smith, de Kooning.
And was the Cedar Tavern a big part of the social scene?
Absolutely. You'd go to the Cedar Street Tavern, and these guys would be there. I was too shy to introduce myself, but I was also at that time period. I was playing jazz, and I started as a kid playing little country bars in Montana, and we drug a Hammond organ around in the back of a '48 Dodge convertible. So when I got to New York, I mean, I saw Peggy Lee at Basin Street East, and you could go up to Birdland, and Woody Herman and the Herd was playing there for free. I mean, it was just, so all of it was, and I didn't know. I was too dumb to know. I turned 21 in New York. I mean, I didn't know anything.
That seems like a good place to turn 21. Did you ever encounter John Chamberlain in those Cedar Tavern days? He was in the mix, I think.
Yeah, but I didn't meet him, but you
he
would
was
see
around.
it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What a wonderful environment for creativity.
Oh, well, it happened as a fluke. My teacher was talking to a grad student and said that he should apply for a Max Beckman scholarship to the Brooklyn Museum. I thought she was talking to me, so I applied. I got one.
Well, I do want to get to this work here in just a second, but let's talk about the Wood River Valley, Sun Valley here, Ketchum and Haley. It's a good place for art and artists, isn't it?
Yes. The galleries here are world class. You go to many of them, and you won't find better gallery spaces nor better artists. And artists come from all over. Right now, for example, at Gail Severin is an artist named June Kaneko, who's probably one of the most famous ceramic artists in the world right now. I mean, he's just incredible.
Right here in our backyard.
Right here in our backyard.
You're an author too, Ted. Tell me about the book you have there. You've got a lot going on. Tell me about this.
Well, we have Swiss mountain dogs, Bernese mountain dogs, and they're really funny. And we have 4 of them, and they go back and forth with me to my studios, and they just elicit all of these things. So I started making illustrations of them, and the result was this book called Tucker Gets Tuckered, and it was published in Phoenix, and I'm about finished with the second one.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah. So just.
There's that take your dog to work concept, take your dog to work day concept. I have take your dog to work life. I'm taking my dog everywhere.
Yeah.
So I appreciate what you did here. And I also very much appreciate this here, Ted. And could you just describe what this is?
This is I did a suite of lithographs in Kansas City that were published at Lawrence Litho Workshop last year, and they're after our horses. I'll go out into the pasture and draw the horses, and this is called Guinness, and Guinness is my dark bay horse, and he's called Guinness because he looks like a Guinness beer. And so this is one of the pieces that was just recently published.
And what's the medium here?
It's a lithograph.
Okay.
There's two colored lithographs. Yeah.
Well, you're very kind to make this available for auction for the Camp Rainbow Gold. I really appreciate that.
Well, the Valley's been good to me, and I feel like I want to support causes and pay back. You know, that's what we do, and
that's what a community is.
Yes.
Finally, Ted, I just want to talk to you about the idea of choice, and it seems like you didn't have a choice. You were going to be an artist, and is that how you felt at that time? This is what I do.
Yes, I met a woman who was teaching. Her name was Isabel Johnson, and within 2 weeks of the time that I met her, I decided I didn't want to be alive and not make art, and I still feel that way today, and that was nearly 50 years ago. And
I guess that would be called passion or dedication or myopia or whatever it is. It's in you, right?
Yeah, it is.
Do you see a change from the days that we were talking about in New York, where it seemed like all those guys we mentioned had that? Is there still that quality in people in the same measure today? It seems like you can identify so many people that were hopelessly devoted to their cause, and do you see that same thing in today's society?
I'm not sure. I mean, I don't. I don't know. I don't know quite. I think so. I mean, you'll run across people like this. Maybe because there are more artists now, you run across fewer of them because the population of artists has.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but
And
they're out there.
And historical perspective is one thing. Maybe in 20 years we can look back on this time. So.
Yes. Yeah.
Ted, where can people get this book? Or can they get it yet?
Oh yeah, Gail Severin has them at the gallery,
Okay.
and you can get them online. It's called Tucker.com.
Tucker.com. I appreciate your devotion to both art and dogs, and thank you very much for spending some time with us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you
All
you
right.
for having me, and good luck with your auction.
I appreciate that. We'll let you know how it turns out. We've been speaking with Ted Waddell, and we will speak with many more people on Plum in just a moment.